And we are back. Hello, welcome. Welcome to all the folks joining us here in person at 180 Maiden Lane, and to the folks on the live stream, welcome as well. This is Studio Demo. Studio Demo is a broadcast hub featuring New Wink's wider creative community, where demonstrations, conversations, and creative exchanges happen live. For our final studio demo talk, The Critics Table, our conversation is led by Ajay Kurian, an artist, educator, writer, and founder of New Crits, a global platform for virtual studio mentorship for artists of all backgrounds and experience. He is joined by Johanna Fateman and John Vincler, co-chief art critics of Cultured magazine, to discuss the current state of arts criticism. With their new column, The Critics Table, Fateman and Vincler are working to ignite cultural conversation and healthy debate in the art world, especially at a time when art-centric outlets seem to be disappearing at an alarming rate. While diving into the current media and journalism landscapes, this conversation will look to the future to discuss the platforms, communities, and organizations who are coming together to keep the art world critical. You can learn more about them on demofestival.org. And yeah, you can help. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking it out to the end here. My name is Ajay Kurian, and I'll let the two of you introduce yourselves.
I'm Johanna Fateman.
John Vincler.
So, of course, we're obviously going to get into what the landscape of criticism is, but I think maybe let's start more locally. I think I'm actually interested just in how the Critics Table started, what that process was like.
Okay. I was asked in spring, a year ago, to review the Whitney Biennial for Cultured. And I remember being asked by Sarah, and I thought I was aware of Cultured, but I said, does Cultured do criticism? I wasn't sure about that. So I did that review of the Whitney show. I had to do it in it was like 24-hour turnaround. And I was writing mostly for the New York Times at the time. But then Sarah kept on having a conversation about criticism and about how the landscape for criticism was shifting. There were major vineyards that were closing, and that there was a real opportunity there. And Sarah really saw that opportunity. Sarah Harrelson, the founder and editor of Cultured. And the conversation just continued, and the more we talked, the more she said yes. We kind of agreed. And one of the early things that happened in the conversation was to bring in a co-critic to work with. And if I was going to pick someone to be the chief critic of the art magazine, I would have picked John Fateman. So that was my first call. There's a little convincing that had to happen, but then we had a really fruitful conversation.
Yeah, I think that what is interesting for me about this platform is that, before I came on to work with John, I was looking out at okay, I'm not writing for Art Forum anymore. I'm not writing for the New Yorker anymore. What is the job that I want? And there was no one who had a job that I was that's who I want to be, you know? So I think when John called me, I was like, this is a chance to make my own job and figure it out on the way, which it has been great. I mean, we've been trying different things and listening to people about what they think that gap in the landscape is as far as art criticism goes.
In terms of not writing for Art Forum, not writing for the New Yorker, and starting to think about what you want to do, did you both really recognize that what we call art criticism was in a tough spot? Does it feel like it was something that needed to be saved, or was it just like, oh, we have this opportunity to do the thing that we want to do?
I think we brought certain values to it. There are certain things like the value of short reviews that we both had done in our various venues. And I think there was deeper commitments to the question, I think, of like what does art have to say to the culture writ large? And that's something I always think about, you know. And I think criticism's job is to negotiate between what's happening in the larger world of culture and world events and the art that's happening in the current landscape. So we're mainly dealing with New York, although we've extended beyond that as well. So I guess that's kind of my simple answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also I have been hearing for years complaints that there's not enough criticism, especially from artists who are just like, who do I even tell about my show? Who do I invite? And then on the other hand, people saying all of the reviews are just regurgitated press releases, and they're all positive, and they're all, you know, empty. And I think that for me, art criticism is kind of my art or part of my artistic practice, and I want it to be a literary form. I want it to be well done and nice to read, not just information or not just thumbs up or thumbs down.
Who were the critics that like influenced the way that you both think about art criticism? Like, what was that journey into thinking like, oh, art criticism can be this or it can be this?
John Berger is really important to me. He's kind of that's a tough. I don't want to go too much of a. There's so much criticism. I mean, like Johanna was someone that I read regularly, and
same.
And it was there's so at the New York Times there was a real sense of kind of like Aruna D'Souza and. So many, I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
Did you? I mean, also one other thing that I think about is like, you know, there's art criticism, sure, but also I wonder. Like for me, I was looking at David Graeber's Dawn of Everything again, and like, to me, even though that's like a giant book that kind of rewrites how we think about history, that feels like a valid and beautiful form of criticism that like you both are taking up the practice of criticism maybe in a potentially bigger way, and so that maybe not all the coordinates are art criticism, but there's like just cultural criticism at large. Like that's the thing that I feel like, I mean, I'm really not trying to plug Cultured here, but Culture does toe this line between like having, you know, the celebrity stories and like the big like the pop stories, and then having like longer reads, like having your read on Cameron Rowland, that was an extensive, really meticulous, beautiful piece. That's not easy to do, and to have like the landscape include all of that, I think is kind of a rare thing. So like, there's a capaciousness there that I see in the way that you both are thinking about this.
Yeah, I think that I mean, it's important not to conflate art criticism with reviewing. Do you know what I mean? Like, reviews are. You know, they come and go. They're sort of ephemeral. They're about what's going on. And longer essays are incredibly important to me. And I think there's an interesting relationship between them, you know, the short form and the long form. I think the Cameron piece that you mentioned is a really good example of why I am really happy at the critics table, because I know that if I was at a different magazine, it wouldn't necessarily have. Well, I know that I wouldn't have been able to reproduce all of the images that I wanted to use. And for those of you who don't know Cameron Rowland's work, they include very extensive captions that have to be included. So, you know, the New Yorker is not going to do that. The Times is not going to do that. Even Art Forum would, you know, definitely put a cap on it. So the fact that it was, well, digital, and the fact that we called the shots made it possible.
That's amazing.
I will add one thing. The one of the things that's great about those early conversations we had about what the critics table would be is that one of the things that I said right away when I talked with you, you said this too, without knowing the full situation, and I was just like, yes, you're saying exactly what I said about the critics table, was that we needed to be editorial independent. So we choose all the shows that we review. We edit each other and the writers that we bring in, including Ajay, which we should talk about. And so while we exist in the ecosystem of culture, we also kind of have an independent silo. And I think that's an important feature, and it's kind of fundamental to what we've built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Cultured is not owned by Jay Penske, and it isn't independent in that sense, and in sort of the big sense. And then we have total editorial independence within the critics table. So, I mean, I think that that's crucial. It's crucial to build trust with the writers we want to work with, and crucial for us to feel like we're doing what we want and working with integrity.
Right.
Galleries and museums should be mad at us when we go negative rather than at Cultured at large.
This is, I mean, so that's what you guys are developing, and then of course I'm sure you're also aware of like the larger critical landscape, or whatever we might want to call it, which is like there are potentially fewer magazines that are doing real criticism, and so it's going elsewhere. It's going to blogs, it's going to Twitter, it's going to Instagram. What are your thoughts about like the ways that criticism might be changing and transforming, or if you call that criticism? To make it a little polemical.
I mean, I'm not going to say that's not criticism, but and I post on Instagram, and I like it when funny people, write short things on social media. It really bears no relationship to what I want to do as a writer. I really love art. I really respect artists, sort of like, in a the larger sense. And I think that things deserve more than a cursory, couple sentences. And I don't think it works to be flippant about art. Generally, and that unfortunately is the tone that goes over the best, in those forums.
That's true.
Even along Substack, it's often a writer having to edit themselves too,
right.
And so we do have an editorial structure, and we do have often someone coming in when we're posting, doing a kind of final copy edit or adding links and things like that. So there is that kind of cursory, or not cursory, but mechanical review.
Yeah, I would say it's far from cursory.
Well, we can talk about that, the deeper editorial process of pieces. But there's also a speed to it. So it's often like, I'm going to be publishing, next week, and so you also have a tight time frame. So I also think that's really good as a critic to have that pressure on you to want to perfect things, but then also know that. I guess when you have your Substack, you can choose to publish later, but we really are publishing every week at the same time, and that's I think productive as well.
Yeah, I mean the process. So I wrote a piece for Cultured magazine some months back. It was a response to Dean Kissick's piece in Harper's Magazine, and
I think the most well-read piece that we published, or one of them. So
yeah.
just.
Anyways,
our first viral, or semi-viral, art world viral.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Piece.
No, the process of working with you as my editor was very important. The piece was it was not near it was barely anything before Johanna had her editorial take on it, and helped me sculpt it into something that felt really powerful and sharp, and it's so rare. I love a good editor. I think it's so rare to get that with criticism and with magazines in general. And so knowing that there's a place that can offer you that and has actual independence is a rare thing. It's I can't really name that many other places that have that system right now.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, that piece that you wrote is a special case because I think that we both had a sense of its importance, and we both had a stake in what you were saying. And so I felt like it was important to me personally, as well as professionally, that this is the strongest it can be. And you had all the ideas, I mean, it was just a matter of like, yeah, as you said, sculpting it and structuring it. I don't think that people are edited often for art magazines, not in a sort of rigorous way. And I'm very lucky. I learned how to write at Artforum. I mean, I had so much support from the editors there. And that's where I learned, how to write a review. By the time I started, writing for The New Yorker, I was using everything that I had learned from writing critics' picks at Artforum.
I feel like one of the things that we're maybe loosely getting at in addressing the landscape of criticism and also what you two are doing at Cultured is like, you're developing a model where you're really thinking about this as a literary form, as something that you really want to invest time and care into, and that can't be fast, that can't be flippant. It's like you're trying to actually cultivate something else. And on the one hand, I'm all here for the hot takes. I'm all here for like things that are quick, fast, and fun. But it's also good to know that this exists. I don't know if it's like, I mean, I know you were talking about like the short review versus the long review. I feel like there is this idea that there are different times to reviews too. There's like different rhythms in a way. Like, are you thinking about, I know you're thinking about rhythm. Are you thinking about where those rhythms are coming from? Like how you're choosing writers, how you're building this like community of writers?
Yeah, we have a little bit of flexibility in our schedule. So sometimes we'll run like 3 short reviews one week if one piece needs a little longer. So we're often negotiating that in a pretty organic way, even though there is that pressure of every week. And that often means us filling in, being like, okay, I'm going to write a couple more, or I'll turn this into a longer piece, or so we do have that. That's kind of we have a kind of nimbleness, I think, to the model we've developed, which has been really useful.
Yeah, and I think to some degree it's still nascent. I mean, we had a vision for having a lot of short form reviews to fill in that gap where the smaller galleries are getting consistent coverage, and there's a sense of like a local New York art scene. And I think we're not there in terms of the formatting of having it be like a gallery guide. But I do think that the smaller galleries and definitely artists have been, thankful for even a, short review.
For
so
sure.
I think they're important to do. But I do tend to like the longer pieces, I guess. And I'm sort of veering towards that in my life, I think.
So in the future, where do you think criticism is going to come from? I know it's like a hefty question to lay on you.
I mean, I want it to come from more people. One of the things that I really loved about working with Ajay for his response to the Dean Kissick piece is that you're an artist. And in a sort of professionalized art world, I think that's where we get the press release speak, and I think more voices, and I personally, enjoy working with people, learning how to write. So,
I think one of the problems I think that criticism faces is people are reading less and less, just anything, kind of like. And so I think one of the things to think about is, but people are listening to podcasts, people are listening to books more and more. So I think we're kind of reckoning with thinking about media beyond writing, or how to take our writing and turn it into other forms of media in very pragmatic ways, but how to do that without sacrificing the depth and care that I think we're trying to apply to criticism. So that's kind of what our immediate conversation is around, partly.
The depth and care that you're talking about, like, when I read some of the people, like people have been writing about, let's say, the fact that there is no good art criticism because there's no standards of judgment anymore, and that the only thing that they can go back to is like old modernist Greenbergian criticism, and like that's the model, and if it's not that, then it's unfounded and it's non-dialectical or whatever you want to say. Like there's all these different takes on it. How do you think about what are the grounds of judgment, and do they need to be universalized? Do they need to go towards all things, or are there other ways of thinking about this?
I have a New York Times editor who during edits would often call and have conversations and edits. But one of the things that she would say regularly is just like, "Why does anyone care about this?" It's just like, and it's just, I think it's such a fundamentally good question of like why does broader concept of culture, not in the little art world, not in the little, but why does anyone care about this? And so that's kind of a voice in my ear always. It's like how would you besides trying to take great care just to situating and contextualizing the work that you're looking at and describing it, how to level up from that about what that says in the culture, what it says to the moment, and understanding that that's not always a fair question to ask, that sometimes the work has been in the works for 2 years, and now it's appearing in this moment, and sometimes it's very happenstance, kind of friction with the moment, or synchronicity with the moment, and to kind of take all of that into consideration and present something that is resonant with the moment, that matters. Like how to connect making those kind of connections from the kind of granular that's before you, and understanding the history of that to the broader cultural context. I think that's kind of the work of criticism.
I mean, I always, sort of substitute instead of like, is this good or bad? I mean, I definitely like use those words. Like when I'm chatting, I'll say that sucked or that was bad. But I ask myself, did I like it? And why? Do you know what I mean? I think it's a cliche, but it's true. Like subjective experience is chaotic. And no, there aren't any standards. I mean, I'm definitely not interested in Clement Greenberg's standards. I'm not. And so I think that we have to create those things for ourselves, our own frameworks. And we also have to look at work generously and see what its own terms are.
I think it's a good, like we're getting close to a point of wrapping up, and I feel like thinking about criticism as a space of generosity rather than a takedown or tearing someone apart or anything along those lines, like that's not necessarily what makes good criticism. I feel like there's the writing that I really love is the writing where even though it's a critique, it's almost like an act of love. You're doing it because you really fucking care about this and it matters to you. And even if that's in like a mercenary fashion where it's not necessarily, oh, this is how I think about everything, or this is what grounds all criticism all the time, if you can get in there and make a claim that's both your experience and potentially something larger than your experience, then I think you have readers and you have people that care.
In the piece I published this week, there's a sharp point about aimed at galleries where I think galleries don't always serve their artists. And I think one of the things I'm saying is, are there certain decisions that galleries are making kind of as a trend that I noticed where they're not serving their artist? And I think it's important to have a little friction sometimes in that sort of way. But you'll have to read the subscribe and read if you to understand what I'm talking about. But I think also enthusiasm's contagious, And so I think when you're really excited by art, and as a critic you're trying to figure out why that is, there's nothing better than kind of sharing, like, see this, like, take like have some of my excitement about this. I think that's a fundamental thing to what we do.
Yeah, so go to Cultured Magazine and subscribe. I know that's like a total naked plug, but they are doing good work, and there's also plenty of other places to read criticism. I'm not saying that this is the only place, Criticism's alive and well. Like, people who are shitting on it just need to figure their own shit out.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Could give them one more round of applause. Awesome. All right, y'all, that is a wrap on Studio Demo for Demo 2025. Yes, thank you to all our fabulous speakers, to our incredible audience members. Thank you to the New Ink crew who was here and helped out making sure that things ran smoothly. If you want to rewatch any of these talks, you can head to New Ink's YouTube channel. They will all be there for you. You can put them on like a podcast and just listen to them over and over again. Yeah, for the folks here, I encourage you to head over to the main stage for our creative science track talks happening next. It's been an honor to be your host. Thank you. Bye.